Right, well, earlier on we spoke to economist and chief executive officer at Weaver Investment Management, Owen Khumalo, to unpack the state of the country's economy, looking at food inflation, unemployment and fuel hikes.
At first glance, if you look at the quarter-on-quarter decline in unemployment numbers, it could look encouraging and exciting, but no, it doesn't at all, because the decrease from 32.9% to 32.7%, 20 percentage points decrease in the unemployment rate is nothing to be excited by. But a more positive number is the year-on-year decrease in the unemployment rate. So if you look at the fourth quarter of 2021, unemployment rate was sitting at 35.3%, and look at the fourth quarter of 2022, they dropped to 32.7%. So that's a percentage decrease of 2.6% year-on-year. But again, nothing to be excited about, because we're looking at just some sort of normalization to pre-pandemic levels. So at 32.7%, our formal employment rate remains largely too high. And again, if you look at the expanded employment rate, is still sitting very high, almost 10% higher than the official unemployment rate. So it's sitting at 42.6%. So yeah, we've got a long way to go. Even though there was a slight drop in the last year on the unemployment rate, especially on the backdrop of extensive load shedding. 2023 has not started well so far. So for the first 2 months of this year, we have already seen 59 days of load shedding, and that will put pressure on trading and economic conditions for companies and business that are supposed to create employment.
Having looked at all of these figures, I mean, what are you expecting then in the next quarter? Improvement or not?
I'm not optimistic on improvements, and again, on the backdrop of high load shedding stages of stage 4, stage 5, and stage 6. As I said already, every day of 2023 so far, the 59 days in 2023, we have seen load shedding on a daily basis. So that will put pressure. Yesterday, we were talking about liquidations on businesses, and the majority of the liquidations we saw in January this year already. And going back for the last year in 2022, where voluntary liquidations, where businesses are saying we just can't cope, especially with the load shedding. So given the way we started the year, I foresee this unemployment number remaining stubbornly high, and it could potentially go slightly higher as companies liquidate and shed more jobs.
Yeah. And I mean, what's the message then? Because I mean, this obviously, the joblessness is obviously impacting the youth the most. And I mean, we're hearing about the fact that, there is, expansion, when we're talking about discouraged job seekers. So we're actually getting to a point where the youth are actually becoming despondent about the whole situation. What would you say to all of this? I mean, you're painting this picture and you're, giving us these stats, but I think practically, what's there to say?
Yeah, practically, I think we can only hope that conditions will improve, but it's kind of difficult to be optimistic in an environment where economic growth is this low. So for us to make a significant dent on the unemployment rate, we need economic growth so that businesses can thrive and create jobs. And we're not seeing that at the moment globally, and not just in South Africa. Global economic growth has slowed down. In South Africa, for the last couple of decades, we have had, if not more, we have had the challenge of low growth. And in a low growth environment, businesses don't create a lot of jobs. So it's unfortunate that the unemployment rate remains this high. But until we get the global or the economic growth going, it's going to be difficult now. And again, the conundrum is that until we fix the power supply problem, we cannot see economic growth. So yeah, it's kind of a bleak picture. Unfortunately, I wish I could give you some positive news. Now, what this means, and we've seen this with with the rising cost of living is that as businesses come under pressure, they're shedding jobs, but also the consumer is under pressure, rising interest rates and rising cost of living expenses like fuel and transport. It means that the consumer is spending less, so the consumer base for those businesses that are producing services and products is shrinking. So it becomes a vicious cycle of negative news.